Hello everyone, and welcome to the next module of our research seminar series designed to help you conduct your own research project. In this module, we will examine the literature review in detail. This seminar is brought to you by Dr. Tsang, Dr. Chung, myself, and Sadiq Wira, on behalf of the Niagara Regional Campus and Niagara Health Research Lead Office. I would also like to acknowledge George Hu, the creator of the previous module, for his instrumental work in developing this project. The objectives of this module are to help you distinguish characteristics of several scientific databases, focus or explode topics using mesh terms on PubMed to refine search results, and to develop strategies to retrieve and organize literature. To begin, let's look at a familiar case. Ari is a medical learner who has recently finished a day in clinic with an intensivist and is curious about the effect of proning in patients with acute respiratory distress syndrome, or ARDS. After using Peacock and Finder strategies to develop a research question, Ari would like to study if proning of patients with severe ARDS improves 6-month mortality compared to standard therapy. Ari identifies the next step of her research process to be conducting a literature review. Based on this scenario, what can arise if Ari feels rushed and skips the literature review or conducts it in a superficial manner? Please take some time now to pause this video and review the following options. Which of the following terms could Ari search on PubMed to find all results related to the posture of an individual lying face down? And finally, what are 3 important steps for Ari to consider when conducting a literature review? In the previous module, research questions were likened to the foundation supporting a house, essential to sustaining the project. Similarly, existing literature provides support, a structural basis, and platform for progress for new research. The literature includes scholarly articles, books, graduate dissertations, conference proceedings, and more. This body of work provides us the means of communication, so we may know what has been discovered or studied, what is debatable or agreed upon, and even learn what other researchers suggest in terms of future directions. If we did not have literature, it would be impossible for us to move forward, as people would have to continually reinvent the wheel. Luckily, with literature, we are able to stand on the shoulders of giants. The general purpose of a literature review is to understand what is known or not yet known. There are many different types of literature review that serve more specific goals. These include the traditional review, which is a critical examination of the literature; the conceptual review, which synthesizes ideas, groups common themes, and contextualizes understanding; the state-of-the-art review, which is meant to discuss the most recent research; the expert review, written by an expert or experts in the field, whereby the authors are selecting material they believe is relevant or important; and the scoping review, our focus for today, which is an overview that provides a foundation for future research. It broadly identifies what is known and where there are gaps. Some literature reviews use more rigorous appraisal. For example, systematic reviews identify specific criteria for selecting articles, and then compares and evaluates the evidence. A meta-analysis may be a part of a systematic review, and specifically gives statistical analysis for cohorts of studies. The purpose of conducting a scoping literature review is to create familiarity with a particular topic. Being able to efficiently and effectively summarize a subject background will be important in developing the introduction section of a paper. Having a strong grasp of the literature and being able to make connections between what has been found in the past and the present study lends credibility to scholarly work. In healthcare, new findings are being reported constantly. In order to practice evidence-based medicine, it is important to be able to search and synthesize information in the literature and draw conclusions based on the larger corpus, while identifying any biases, trends, relationships, or contradictions. Here we have the literature review process simplified into 6 steps: clarifying the question, accessing databases, finding information, extracting information, combining results, and summarizing results. As you can see, this is a cycle. Now let's explore these steps in more detail. First, using the research question, we must identify the main topics to research. A strong knowledge base is an essential tool to answering the research question. And a good research question will have an appropriate scope that can be examined in depth. Not too broad, not too narrow. Since the goal of literature review is to understand current knowledge, we need to look broadly for resources. At the same time, we are looking for scholarly work. Peer-reviewed articles will provide the relevant information we seek at the appropriate level. Databases will allow us to retrieve articles that we can filter through to find what we need. There are numerous databases, but here are some that may be useful to you in the healthcare field. PubMed will be our focus for today. This is the free search engine for Medline, the National Library of Medicine's comprehensive database for citations and abstracts. This source is useful for our purposes because it has a clinical focus, is something anyone can access, and is comprehensive. Depending on your goals and interests, some other databases may be more applicable. For example, Embase, a subscription-based database for pharmacology. EBSCO, a subscription-based collection of databases, including APA Psych Info, which can be very important for psychology and psychiatry research. Web of Science, subscription-based, features its own citation index. Cochrane, subscription-based, includes systematic reviews which may be useful for clinical recommendations. Ovid, subscription-based, maps search terms to the controlled vocabulary of each database. This was also the first search engine for Medline. Although the aforementioned are subscription-based, most can be accessed through the McMaster Library. There's an additional free resource we can use, Google Scholar. This can be a quite helpful resource. It uses Google's algorithm and database. Some other resources you can consider are expert suggestions and reference lists of the most pertinent articles. Now, to find information, we must develop and use effective search strategies. This includes identifying key terms to yield more relevant search results and eliminate more irrelevant search results. Keep in mind that in conducting a literature review, we are trying to find as much of the relevant literature as possible. In our everyday lives, searching Google for chocolate chip cookie might show us links for grandma's best chocolate chip cookie recipe, and that might be what we're looking for. However, when conducting a literature review, we are looking for many more articles. It is important to choose search terms deliberately, instead of letting an algorithm do the searching. In a rigorous review process, it would even be necessary to oversearch. For our purposes, and in Ari's case, being systematic with our searches will allow us to find as much of the literature as possible on one topic without missing results. One of the tools we can use in our searches is MESH terms. MESH stands for Medical Subject Headings, and this is the National Library of Medicine's controlled vocabulary thesaurus, used for indexing articles for PubMed. MESH terms can be used so that all articles on a given topic can be found regardless of variation in terminology. In this example, we see that persistently high arterial blood pressure can be described in many ways. A hypertension MESH term will allow us to be comprehensive in our searches by giving us a search term that encompasses all of these variations. Let's break things down. Ari's question was, does proning of patients with severe ARDS improve 6-month mortality compared to standard therapy? We can distill this question into some main concepts, such as proning, severe ARDS, and mortality. By searching these concepts in the MESH search engine, we can find the following MESH terms: prone position, MESH; fatal outcome, MESH; respiratory distress syndrome, adult, MESH. We can then search these MESH terms in PubMed to find all of the articles related to the MESH term. Keep in mind MESH terms will always have MESH in them. This link will take us to PubMed's MESH search engine. Note that you're searching in MESH and not PubMed. Depending on your search term, there may be a results page where you can choose the most appropriate. In this case, however, searching acute respiratory distress syndrome takes us directly to the relevant MESH page. Now, within this term, several qualifiers may be suggested. Depending on whether or not this is relevant to your search, you may want to specify. However, keep in mind that increasing the limits on your search by specifying to a further level may lead to missing relevant results. Now let's use the PubMed search builder to add the MESH term to your search. There are a few ways to do this. You can copy and paste the exact MESH terms you want to use from your previous MESH search into the query box. Or you can enter them in using add terms. The search builder will offer booleans. Depending on your topic, there may be related terms that you want to exclude using not, or want to include as an alternative using or. Once you have finished building your search, you can find all the articles related to the term or terms cataloged on Medline. Finally, you will notice that there is a user guide offered on this page. The National Council of Biotechnology Information offers extensive guides, pamphlets, and YouTube videos that you can refer back to when conducting your own research. A list of resources will be offered at the end of this module. Let's see what happens when we search ARDS in PubMed. Alone, this MESH term gives us 19,000 results. Trying to read all of these articles would take you years. However, if we modify that search by trying to find all the articles discussing ARDS and proning, we can combine the MESH terms for prone position and ARDS, and we get some 500 results. This number is much more manageable than almost 19,000, although still a bit high. It is likely that you can narrow down further. However, keep in mind that every time a limit is added, there's a chance that relevant articles are excluded. So we've looked at how you might narrow results, but on the other hand, you might want to explode a topic. You might be wondering why you would want to explode a topic. This has to do with how comprehensive we want a review to be. Some articles that are related to our interests may not be categorized under one term. To be exhaustive in our search, exploding can help to yield otherwise unseen results. We have a few options. First, within the MESH term, clicking MESH tree structures will give you the tree for this topic. You can click up a level, expand topics, and continue exploding. Or if you find a particularly relevant article, you can expand the MESH terms section for that article and find all of the related MESH terms. Also within articles, you may want to look at reference lists of key papers and examine the articles that those authors have referenced. There are some other ways to refine your search. These include filters, so you can select articles from a specific time period, about a specific species, such as humans, or specific sex or age, which may be important if you're looking at pediatric or adult populations. Booleans will allow you to combine or exclude terms. Subheadings may be necessary if your search is not specific enough. And entry, related, and linked terms can help you find other articles of interest. Here's a final tip to optimize your literature search process. Create an account with the NCBI. This will allow you to review previous searches and save certain searches. PubMed can then send you alerts if there are new articles matching your query, if this is an active area of research for you. If you have any questions or want to review, remember that PubMed has numerous free resources on how to use its databases, YouTube tutorials, brochures, and articles. Now that you have your articles, the next step is to make an appraisal of the information. Depending on your goals, what you need from each article may be different. One common step would be to identify how each article does or does not contribute to prevailing theories, controversies, or other aspects of the topic. You may need to consider any of the following: methodology, variables, biases, results, implications, generalizability, and conclusions. Keep track of which articles you are discarding and why, and which articles are seminal and why. You can stay organized and help yourself remember what articles you've accessed and what information you've gleaned from them by using a reference manager. Here are some free and paid examples. Staying organized will help group any related articles or ideas and generate some main themes of agreement or controversy. Organizing as you go can save you time later in the process. Once you have the information you've appraised from the literature, you can summarize results. When summarizing the findings, identifying key take-home messages can help you build a logical narrative. Remember that a literature review should generate a snapshot of existing research, with the articles being the smaller pieces that fit into the larger picture. With the literature review itself, we want to be able to zoom out and see that bigger picture. Keep in mind, however, that the picture is likely imperfect, and our understanding of it more so. At the end of the day, remember your research question. How can your literature review inform your research question? Is there anything to refine? Do you have an idea of methodologies you can consider? Does your research question make sense in the context of the literature? Or has it been answered already? Will answering the question fill an important gap in the science? What are your next steps? Let's summarize what we've learned. Existing literature is important for research progress. Finding information requires filtering through numerous resources. Refine with mesh, filters, subheadings, and so forth. And remember that organization will increase our efficiency. Let's return to our case. We see now that skipping a literature review may not be a time-saving effort. Important results may not be considered, and key literature may be missed. Additionally, appraisal of each of the articles is important to assess its contributions to the science. After reviewing this module, we can now identify how to find the appropriate mesh term. Finally, hopefully in looking at the literature review process, we can see that accessing databases, finding information, and organizing results are important key steps, and that in retrieving literature, we both narrow and broaden our search parameters. It may be important to look at outcomes, populations, and interventions in other stages of the research journey. That brings us to the end of the session. If you have any feedback for today's session, please feel free to email us. Thank you.